Hero, it is with great honor and respect that I present you the armor for our most prestigious champions of our nation. When the world offered threats to the Alliance, you triumphed against it and saved countless upon countless lives. You showed the world what it means to be a true defender. My father and all of the Alliance thank you for what you've done for us. Bear the colors of Stormwind, champion. Wear that armor with pride and wear it to the days ahead. For the Alliance!
You have done much for the Horde in your years of service, and for that, your name will be sung for ages to come. You are more than worthy for this armor, brother. When our very identity was put into question, time and time again you proved that this planet has a place for the Horde by saving it. You proved what we are and why we're here. Our ancestors in the Horde smile upon you, champion. On this day we learn from you. Wear that armor with honor and continue to carry us on the path of glory. For the Horde!
Greetings and citations, everyone. Welcome to a new series of mine where we talk about, or rather speculate on, the heritage armors for the original races that have yet to be released. This means we won't be talking about the dwarves, gnomes, blood elves, and tauren who are already, or are going to be, out soon. In these videos we will include two races, one from the Horde and one from the Alliance, with the only exception being the Horde and the Alliance Pandaren. Try to do my best to do the other races and their heritage armors in the future, hopefully before Blizzard releases them, but I'll make no promises. This of course isn't anything official, just me guessing what we might be getting as far as racial armor. Most of my guessing will come from the racial leader, cinematics, Warcraft units, character art, Here's the Storm skins, and already established armor sets to give an idea or a conclusion to what the armor might be or look like. Fair warning, a lot of this will be what I would like to see for the armor, and I do apologize if you don't want to hear what I would like to have for these armors. I decided to talk about the Orcs and Humans first, since they've been given a lot of armor over the course of World of Warcraft, and also they just received their Warfront armors from Arathi, making it difficult to figure out just what they might be getting from good old Father Blizzard. With this knowledge in mind, I think we won't be seeing their armors for quite some time. Fair warning, I will be repeating some stuff for the Orcs and Humans in their segments for this video. Let's start things off with the Humans Heritage Armor. I'll leave a time note in the video here to tell you when and where the Orcs start too. Let's strap on in and get our characters to level 120, max our reputations, and get this party started. The story of the Heritage armor typically involves around an event that has already happened, but has yet to be shown yet in-game. Or is an important event of a momentous occasion, you typically have your racial leader and your racial champions walk you through the story in the present with some relevancy to current events, tying the armor into the story along the way. To name a few examples, for the dwarf, you rediscover the original armor of the Dwarven King from ages past and have it restored with the aid of Bran Bronzebeard and his trio of pals from Ulduar, and then you present it to Muradin. For the Blood Elves, you go through a rite of passage to gain your armor with Lorthamar Therin and Liadrin, seeing the very events that had your race be called Blood Elves in the first place. Because of this, the story will vary for all the races. I imagine Anduin calls forth the human champion to collect this very armor from Stormwind as a part of some kind of task or remembrance to whatever is connected to said armor. I've 3 different examples I think that the humans could potentially get. One thing that stood out to me was if Anduin offered to give the armor of Anduin Lothar. For those who do not know, Anduin Lothar was the last true descendant of the ancient Arathi bloodline, a knight champion of the Kingdom of Stormwind during the First War, and the supreme commander of the armies of the Alliance of Lordaeron during the Second War. Lothar was good friends with King Lane and Medivh. He perished in combat at the base of Blackrock Mountain just before the end of the Second War. He is considered one of the greatest warriors in human history. King VARIAN named his son, the current King of Stormwind, after him. With Lothar himself being a major hero of the Alliance, I imagine it would be a great deal to the humans for somebody to wear his armor again, or something modeled after it. The belt was worn by VARIAN, as well as potentially the rest of the armor as well. Though there is the possibility that the armor itself is within the League of Explorers within Ironforge, just waiting to be used. The sword of Anduin Lothar is currently in possession of Turalyon after the blade had been shattered and then reforged with some light within it. I don't think the weapon matters too much, but it's just something I felt the need to point out. This means we could visit the areas where Lothar made a great difference during the course of the wars. We could have Turalyon, who was Anduin Lothar's student, come with us and show us some kind of vision or something of Lothar and his acts for the Alliance. Taking a look at Lothar's armor, it resembles a lot like the Lieutenant's Commander Plate armor, which is coincidentally also the very armor that Anduin Lothar wears in Karazhan during the flashbacks. It also looks pretty similar to Uther's own armor that he wears in most of his character art. Now, I personally suck at describing how an armor looks, so for these, I'll just show and don't tell you what I think they will look like. I personally think Lothar's whole Lion and Knight theme armor would be perfect for the humans to wear. Now, the gloves, legs, and boots look pretty basic, but the shoulders, belt, chest, and cloak really make it for this set, and I would simply love to see this worn by the humans for their heritage armor. You know how much I love it when a World of Warcraft cloaks actually drapes over the shoulders, so this would be a primary set for people to own. Of course, they wouldn't base it entirely off of this armor set or artwork, but it's a good way to start. I know for a fact that many people who play humans would be happy about this set. As for the helm, we could probably see something like Anduin's Lion Helm or Varian's Elite skin from Heroes of the Storm. It would fit well with the whole lion theme of the set too. Or maybe something like King Lane helm from the movie, which looks pretty similar to these two helms as well. Also remember, a lot of these heritage armors are nods to your racial leader. Anduin definitely has the whole lion theme going on for him, and you as his stalwart knight wearing the same armor as Lothar would be a perfect match. Much like Mekkatorque's own armor, which looks almost identical to the Gnome Heritage armor that we see at BlizzCon. I have 2 more ideas that the humans could have, and the other would be if you don't know who VARIAN is, well, for one, you should be ashamed of yourself. And for 2, VARIAN was the acting leader of the Alliance and the former king of Stormwind. Under his leadership, the humans of Stormwind led the Alliance to victory against the Lich King in Northrend, and now seek to bolster their strategic holdings against their common enemy, the Horde. With the world plunged into chaos by the Great Cataclysm, he took up military leadership of the Alliance and vowed to forge a new destiny for Azeroth. He learned a great deal from his son during the expedition into Pandaria, and offered peace to the Horde once they were rid of their honorless war chief. Ultimately, he lost his life to Gul'dan and the demons on the Broken Shore. Now I know I said Lothar and Varian's armor might be the same, and at least for the belt, it is. But clearly when you compare these two together, a lot of it is different. Maybe it's a reforging of the armor, or maybe it's something entirely different. Very similar to Lothar, his sword is also in possession of somebody else. Charlemagne is currently in possession of Anduin, and he's actually been doing a pretty good job of fighting with it. Once more, the weapon doesn't matter too much, but it's nice to keep track of that lore knowledge in case somebody asks if we'll wield their sword or whatever with their armor. Either way, Varian's look has more of a griffin or eagle look to it, on his shoulders and gloves, but the lion theme is still shown around the chest, boots, and of course the belt. Now, as for the story, we know that Varian lost both of his shoulders and cloak when he began to drown in the Broken Shore's waters. He abandoned them in favor of not drowning. Can't say I blame the guy. I could very well see somebody finding the cloak and shoulders and sending them to Anduin, who by now already has his father's sword and his own unique armor. Since Varian wore Lothar's belt, who's to say Anduin wouldn't give his own father's armor to a hero who's most certainly earned it for their actions and would know his father better than anyone that it should be used to good use. Unfortunately, the rest of Varian's armor and Varian was disenchanted by that dirty no-gooder Gul'dan. So one would assume we would go on a quest to get that armor reforged and remade into something better, and most importantly, more high-res graphics. Maybe something along the lines of his Heroes of the Storm counterpart. It would be a great way to tie in a helm for the set. So, on a technicality, this isn't really Varian's armor, at least not completely, but a replica of it, or a tribute to it. This could also lead to Anduin telling us of Varian's axe in various lore places, which for the most part we already know about, but a retelling wouldn't be such a bad thing. Especially when some of it happened in books that we all haven't read. I still need to complete my reading of Wolfheart personally. I'm a terrible lore channel, and I'm sorry. I'll finish it, I promise. Disappointing you all again aside, Varian as a character and his armor is revered by a lot of players, and I think a great deal of them would be happy to have a remodel of it and the same shoulders that Varian once wore. I know I would think of myself as pretty badass, as well as my neighbor next to me for wearing that very armor of Varian Wrynn. And the next guy, and the next guy, and the... Okay, but that's just one of the downsides of the heritage armor in general. Let's make Varian proud, fish up his shoulders from the ocean, and kick ass in his armor for the glorious Alliance. Lastly, a third armor that is unfortunately extremely likely and would probably disappoint me, you, and your mums is... Now this is the most likely of the armor as it's the most iconic. It's the typical knight armor we've seen since Classic, and while they could try and do some new things with it, we've gotten plenty of versions of it through the years. They could finally give us a proper cloak or something like we saw in Warcraft 3's Reign of Chaos cinematic. That would be awesome. But we've seen it in Warcraft 3 in the cinematics and units, we've seen it worn on the Stormwind Knights in World of Warcraft, and we've seen it revamped versions of it in Wards of Draenor, and very recently within Arathi Warfront. Now I'm sure you can hear by the enthusiastic tone in my voice, or the script here, and there's a reason for that. And I do apologize for ranting in this portion of the video, but we do not need another Knight set. Believe me when I say this isn't just for this set, but I don't think we need another Knight set like these on here. It's why I think the heritage armor for both humans and orcs is going to be the hardest for Blizzard, because they've received most of their very iconic armors already. With the recent Warcraft 3 Reforged cinematics, I wouldn't be surprised if their heritage armors were based off of those, but it's something I do not want. I can't speak for everybody here, but I will be the first to say, do not give us another knight set like these. Please. For the story, I would guess we could see some kind of retelling of the events of the First and Second War, which I actually would love to see, and visit those types of places with Anduin and maybe Trallian, but that's pretty dang similar to Lothar's storytelling that I've already said prior. Maybe we could learn more about the origins of how this armor came to be. Maybe something to do with Tyr and their rightful ancestors or something. Look, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here too. I do think there will be coolness factor regardless of what they give us. They could offer different tints of the armor to represent all of the human nations, but I'm going to ask Blizzard to give the player something unique and different for the human heritage armor. Let's move on to the Orcs and jump right into a very similar case of the Alliance's Knight Heritage armor, set while I still have that rant momentum. Alright guys, going to reiterate here, so the story of the Heritage armor typically involves around an event that has already happened but has yet to be shown in-game, or is an important event of a momentous occasion. You typically have your racial leader and racial champions go along with you in telling you this tale in the present with some kind of relevancy to the current events that the armor is usually tied to within the story. To name a few examples, for the gnomes in 8.2, we are told that they will ride on a rocket and destroy some trogs. Now, I'm sure there's more to it than that, but it sounds like they'll be retaking Gnomragon finally, which is a momentous occasion. Okay, that's just my guess, of course. The armor looks very similar to Megatork's own. Meanwhile, the Tauren are sent to Thunderbluff to understand a disturbance within their city. I believe they do something with the Spirit Walkers and Bane's recent arrest in 8.1.5. So potentially, maybe we'll see Cairn again, seeing as the armor does resemble that of the Tauren Chieftain from Warcraft 3. So this will vary for all of the races. I imagine Thrall of VAROK calls forth the Orc Champion to collect this very armor from Orgrimmar. I have 4 examples I will list that I think the Orcs could potentially get. Same energy as before, the Orc Grunt set is a very common and iconic armor set seen throughout Warcraft and World of Warcraft. It's been seen in Warcraft 3 cinematics, the Orc Grunt unit, and grunts throughout World of Warcraft. It's a very likely set for Blizzard to give the Orcs, especially when you consider they haven't properly given the Orc Grunt helm set to us yet. However, once more, I would like for them to not give us this set. As cool as it may look, and what pieces they could make better, we've got plenty of versions of it. We could get different tints of the Grunt set to represent the different clans, much like the Mag'har Orcs heritage armor in areas like Hammerfall, Gromgul, Kargath, and so forth. Orange for Blackrock, purple for Warsong, blue for Frostwolf, and green for Bleeding Hollow. That is a lot of tints though, so I'm sure they will probably only do a few of those. They could even make this more like the Warcraft 3 and Mists of Pandaria Orc by including a single shoulder pad for the armor rather than 2. It's a great way of acknowledging the no honor, no pauldron wave that we had going on several months back. If we really wanted to make a Grunt armor more interesting, I'd take inspiration from the WARLORD'S battle gear plate from Classic. Much as I'm not a fan of classic armor, that is actually one set I quite like and think would look amazing with the current day graphics. But again, I really think they should strive to make something more unique and give a coolness factor to each of these heritage armors. I should want to get the new heritage armor and not be disappointed by it, because they've made some really unique strides with the armor they put out recently. For the Orc storytelling for this bit of armor, maybe we could have Varok Saurfang or Eitrigg have the Orc hero go with them to Outlands and Azeroth for key moments of their history, like the telling of the slaughtering of the Draenei and the first two wars, which, again, we didn't really get to see much of in World of Warcraft. Again, I apologize for my rant bits here, but it's a small portion as to why I made this video in the first place. Let's move on to far more unique and interesting ideas than the blandness that is the Grunt set. Another idea I had for the Orcs was a wolf cowl of some kind, similar to Rexxar's or Durotan's. You commonly see this worn on the Shaman unit in Warcraft 3, and I personally think it would be a great design and thing for Orcs to wear, since Orcs and wolves go hand in hand. You could have different colored furs of the wolves like brown, black, or white to also represent the different clans or just different wolves that you have slain. This again would also allow Blizzard to show off a more draped cloak over the shoulders, which is something I really want, and again I'm sure others would as well. You could even include some kind of symbol of your clan like Durotan's here, holding it together in place. Now there would be more than just the cowl. There would be of course, some kind of gloves, pants, and belt, and boots, and potentially some kind of shoulder. I'd again take a lot of inspiration from the set from Rexxar and Durotan's armors, and maybe just take some inspirations from the Grunt armor too. At least then, the updated Grunt armor would have something that draws you to getting it. You could also include the bones of the wolf as a part of the armor's aesthetic, either on the belt or gloves or something. For story, you could have Thrall, who's finally returned from being missing in action and has finally grown his hair back. He asks for the player to come with him to undergo some kind of orcish trial where you learn the history of the orc legends of the past. This is where we could get some kind of history of the heroes who Thrall was inspired by, like his father Durotan, his mentor, Ogrim, and so forth. Again, explain a lot of the events of Warcraft 1 and 2, potentially even Warcraft 3 in-game, to the player base, because a lot of the lore isn't known by the average player. During the trial, perhaps we fight a wolf to prove our strength for Thrall, or in a more realistic situation, a wolf tries to kill us and we defend ourselves. Going a bit more out there, maybe we are consumed by our anger and take aggression on a random wolf, and it pays homage to the Lords of War of Durotan, where we said the wolf as our heritage armor as a constant reminder that we are all, potentially able to be drawn into our bloodlust, but we should never do that, Again, it's a bit out there and probably something that they won't be doing, I'll admit, but it's a dream, and a dream that I will, at the very least, hope for. I do think that Thrall will be involved in some way or manner with the Orcs' heritage armor. On to the next. That's right, the very armor that Thrall and Ogrim Doomhammer wore/wear. This armor is pretty iconic and is also something that was pretty odd for an orc to wear, since plate was not that common for orcs to wear back during the First and Second War era. Personally, I partially want this armor to remain with Thrall, since it would further emphasize that Thrall should return as Warchief, but it is a kick-ass armor and one I know a great deal of orc players would love to wear. I won't go over the history of Thrall since I did that in a very recent video, but I will go over who exactly Ogrim was. Ogrim was the second command of Blackhand, the warchief of the Blackrock clan. He was good friends with Durotan, chieftain of the Frostwood clan, and would later refuse to drink the blood of Manoroth, ensuring his mind would be his own. When it was revealed that Gul'dan had sold out the orcs and the demons, he would rise up and claim the title of Warchief. He would lead the Horde all the way until the end of the Second War, where he successfully killed Anduin Lothar. But ultimately he was struck down and defeated by Turalyon. He was put into prison with what is now known as the Undercity, but would escape and become a hermit. He'd later meet with Thrall and be inspired to recreate the Horde with him at his side. Though ultimately the Orc Warchief would die at an internment camp, passing down his title of Warchief and his armor and weapon to Thrall. He'd be tributed by the Horde by their city of Orgrimmar being named after him. As you can see here, the armor has a black and yellow color scheme with bits of blue or red on the belt. It also has plenty of orcish symbols to point out, hey, this is some kick-ass orc armor. I really like the majority of the set, especially the belt and the boots. I really like the fur parts on it in the set, and also the belt loops. While there is no helm or cloak, they don't necessarily need to have one. They could include a necklace in its stead, similar to how the Tauren have a totem as their back. For story, this could actually be the storyline of VAROK Saurfang asking for the help of the Orcs hero to help him with seeking out Thrall, or just Thrall calling forth the hero by name. Together, you journey with Thrall and VAROK, going over the history of Ogrim Doomhammer and his exploits. Ultimately, he also brings up that the Orcs and their failings, but also their triumphs. By the end of the questline, he states he'll never give up on being Thrall, and on ensuring that the Horde has a future. To note, this isn't Thrall saying he won't be Warchief either, but it is him saying he's no longer that same Thrall who wore the Doomplate and wielded a Doomhammer. He's Thrall, the Shaman, which we could also perhaps help him with his complexity over Garrosh too, his inability to use the elements and such. He then gifts to you the Doomplate armor, saying that it's best to be worn by you than just collecting dust in Orgrimmar. I have one more quick one for the Orcs. Sorry humans in Alliance, I just couldn't think of a fourth one for you guys. Alternatively, we could have a KOR'KRON set, which, if you didn't know, the KOR'KRON were the Warchief's elite soldiers and guardsmen. I say we could have a KOR'KRON set instead if they wanted to have Thrall keep his armor, and really, when you look at the KOR'KRON armor, it is very similar to how the Doomplate looks. This could be a nice contrast to the Blood Elves Heritage armor, the Spellbreaker look, and the new model of Lorthmar Therin that he just received. So this could go hand in hand with an updated Thrall look, with wearing all of his armor now, and you getting the KOR'KRON armor maybe. There is a model of the shoulders and tabard in the game that we never received, but that's not really a full armor set, and it's also more of a Hellscream KOR'KRON than a Thrall KOR'KRON. They could potentially add different tints for this one as well, but I personally think for this one they should just keep a black and yellow look. With this one's story, perhaps it has something to do with Thrall going over the failings of the KOR'KRON and Garrosh, but ultimately he chooses the rebirth of the faction of Guardsmen with you as its first. This could be Thrall's first new act as Warchief, or just leader of the Orcs. For simplicity's sake and speculation's sake, we'll say that Thrall was just named Warchief after Sylvanas was booted. We could also have it be VAROK if he managed to survive, and Thrall is still MIA. I'll throw in some honorable mentions here that didn't make it into the cut for a full-on explanation, as I either didn't think that they would happen, or I don't want them to happen. One thing that came to mind when I was made this video is the armor that VAROK Saurfang wears, which is reminiscent of the Warrior Tier 1 set that he originally wore before his updated model. It's not that I don't like the armor or anything, it's actually really nice looking, and it would be cool for us to wear the armor. However, as stated before, it's based off of the Warrior set, and not every single Orc is a Warrior. Plus, this is about heritage armor, and while I do think it would be cool to wear the armor of the famous VAROK Saurfang, the current leader of the Orcs, I just don't think his armor is recognizable enough for an Orc, compared to the other armors listed prior. This isn't to say it won't happen, it very well could, as we do have two models of him not wearing all of his armor currently, and he could very well not make it at the end of Battle for Azeroth. But plate wearers can actually get a set very similar to Saurfang's here from PvP and or from Warfronts. I just think it has a lot going against it personally. This was another armor I was tempted to place for the humans, but it really seemed like reaching for the bottom of the barrel. Anduin's armor is super reminiscent of his grandfather's armor from Warcraft's movie, and while I do think it would be cool of Anduin to hand that armor over or a similar copy of it, I just think it's low-hanging fruit of an idea. Yes, I know I said let's give Thrall's iconic Doomplate for the Orc Champion, but I think Thrall has more of a reason to give up his armor than Anduin does. I guess it just doesn't help that Saurfang, Thrall, and Anduin all have models that they aren't wearing these armors. They definitely could do some armor based off of Anduin's own, like some kind of lion knight set, but I just think it would be better to give them the others listed here besides the knight set. If Anduin wants to hand his armor over us having another knight set, I'm fine. Let's go for it, but that's very contradictory with what I'm saying, so. But that's it for ideas I have for armors for the orcs and humans, guys. Thank you all for watching my videos. I've been striving to do a lot to improve both my video quality and the schedule. For me, these take weeks to make, and I hope that at least shows in a positive way. Currently, I'm streaming Witcher 1 on Wednesdays, as we just finished Witcher 3 on Twitch very recently, and we are currently doing World of Warcraft here on YouTube on Tuesdays. So, drop by if you can. You can also support me on Patreon. A small amount goes a long way for me. Big thanks to Sir Tomshire for his talented skills, for the amazing visual gag at the start, and Laurentium for his new intro and outro that he's done for the channel. Always check those two out, they're great. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. Subscribe if you like my videos, but for now, see ya!